Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for our final panel discussion of today. Now, as many of you watching will already know, one of the cornerstones of what we do at Be Inspired and our mission has always been about equipping people with skills and knowledge needed to be able to progress their career in retail, regardless of your age, background, gender, race, sexual orientation or ability. We're really passionate about making sure that those development opportunities are there and that you're able to spot them. However, we are quite aware that at this very moment in time, training opportunities might not necessarily be readily available in all of your businesses. I know that a vast majority of this sector has very much been in survival mode for the last year. And it's great that we're coming through this, but obviously it does have a bit of an effect on some of our career development opportunities. But careers don't stop, and neither should progression, of course. So how do you ensure that you are still able to develop in this time when you might not be getting sent on those expensive training courses or to the conferences where you can kind of network your heart to your heart's content and meet lots of new people? It is quite difficult right now. In this session, hopefully we are going to find the answer to that. And I am really pleased to be joined today by three people who have founded businesses themselves and are therefore quite entrepreneurial in spirit. No pressure, guys. They will be able to share with us how they've gone about spotting these opportunities, how they've gone about upskilling and proactively adding more strings to their bows as they've gone along their careers. So we really did just want to talk to people who have this kind of first-hand experience in proactively transforming their careers. So hopefully today we should be able to provide you with a bit of inspiration on how you might do the same, as well as giving you that confidence to approach your own career in a more entrepreneurial way. So welcome, Mandeep, Victoria and Talia, and thank you so much for joining us today. So I'm going to dive straight in. You've obviously all founded your own companies, and this is sort of the kind of ultimate really in spotting an opportunity to develop. And so I'd love to hear about how you've all identified this and kind of what made you do it. Victoria, can I come to you first? You're first on my screen, so I hope you don't mind me putting you straight on the spot. Your story is obviously quite interesting, as you've had a background in retail supply chain, I understand, but came to start your own clothing company Unhidden after seeing a gap in the market. So can I start with you? Kind of, how did you sort of identify this and what made you take the plunge and do it?
Hi, yeah, no problem. So my background's more in fashion as a garment technologist, as a clothing engineer. And my company Unhidden came out of the need for adaptive clothing for people with disabilities. This is due to my own journey, but also in 2016, I met a patient on a ward that I was also on, and she was unable to access her body. So there was a lack of dignity while she was in hospital, but also outside of it. And then the adaptive options at the time in 2016 were sparse, not really aimed at younger people. There was nothing from a sustainable point of view. And having, sort of researched it since, most of the companies that existed at that time were not tackling it from a fashion background either. So given my career as a garment engineer and the construction of clothes, I was kind of quite well placed to take it on. And so we registered it in 2017, but actually we only launched last year because COVID gave me the gift of time. So I got to progress it more in the last since we launched online in November last year. We're about to hit our 6-month anniversary. And the change in the situation and even in the adaptive market has grown exponentially in that time.
That's amazing. So it's kind of born from that sort of personal passion of spotting this niche and thinking, I really want to do something about that. And I think that's something that can relate quite nicely to people who are perhaps working in career paths where they're working for a business, because it's similar. If you want to upskill or sort of change where you are, you kind of do need to have that passion in order to do it, especially if in a time when business might not be investing so much into you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you don't have that passion, then it's really difficult to get up and do it every day. And I think almost every adaptive designer, the story comes from, it was we've seen something or we've not seen something more to the point, and we want to make that change and be that change. And I think that's true of most businesses.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that, being that change. You have to be that change for yourself after all. Mandeep, can I come to you next? Can you tell us a bit about how Truva came about and kind of what gave you the confidence to start something new in that moment?
Sure. I had a relatively corporate background before. So I was a retail strategy consultant, and then I was a private equity investor before quitting to start what became Truva. So, but one of the things that I really attracted me again was a bit of a personal passion, which was that I'd worked a lot with large retailers and had seen how the world of technology was changing them, and things like e-commerce, click and collect, 1 hour delivery. And but I lived on Bermondsey Street in South London, loved shopping at independent stores, and kind of couldn't understand why no one was doing this for independent stores, why no one was giving independent stores the technology, the platform, and bringing them together to compete in an increasingly online world. This was back in 2013 when I quit my job. Truva launched in 2015. So, those trends are obviously even more powerful, particularly over the last year. But even back then, and so again, it was something that I kind of thought, why is no one doing this? And if no one's doing this, then I'm going to go do it.
I really like that kind of ethos, that why is nobody doing this? And I think, again, that can apply to any business that you're working in. If you can spot where your role sits and what where it could be and what you could be doing, I think that's really key. And I guess that isn't an entrepreneurial way of thinking, really, isn't it? Saying, why is nobody doing this, and can I be the one to do it? No, that's really interesting. Talia, I'd like to come to you as well. I understand that, similar to Mandeep, you were working sort of in a different industry before you founded your company. I believe it was banking. What skills did you have to take on board when you started Sheer Chemistry, and kind of how did that come about?
Yeah, no, I was also in a corporate background, as you rightly said. So Sheer Chemistry really started out of a need that I personally had. So I'd recently graduated from university. I was fortunate to get my first job in New York working in HR within investment banking. And I simply wanted tights to match my skin tone, to take me from the office to happy hour and everything else the day might throw at me. So as you all know, New York is one of the most cosmopolitan cities in the world, with a population 65% Black and brown people. So I never really imagined that finding a pair of tights to match my skin tone would be a difficult process. But, I was constantly confronted with shades of nude in department stores, which are all beige and not brown. So, the hosiery industry is vast and filled with opportunity to reach women that look like me. But for a very long time, brands have really had a traditional definition of beauty and fashion. So this really presented an amazing opportunity for me to redefine traditional beauty standards and offer women of color with greater choice. So really, Sheer Chemistry, what came about to cater to the specific needs of this market. And that's why I wanted to create a more diverse perception of beauty and really empower women to feel confident and gorgeous in their own skin. So like Mandeep, it was really like, why is no one doing this? And why is my beauty not being celebrated? And I thought that is a great place to start and a great mission to start a business on.
I love the way you speak there about seeing a problem as an opportunity. And I think that's a really great, I almost want to say, if anyone's going to take one thing away from today, that's a really great ethos for right now, because, I think across the board, everybody's faced challenges over the last kind of year and a half. And yes, we're coming through it, which is fantastic. But rather than seeing things as problems, how can we kind of flip them on their heads and see them as opportunities? And, it's fantastic to hear from all three of you who have done that, essentially. Cool. Well, without kind of stating the obvious too much, personal development is obviously very important to careers, but it is a time, as I've sort of alluded to, when companies potentially don't really have that cash flow to be investing in L&D. I'd like to kind of get a bit of advice from you all, really, for anybody who is watching this today and is maybe feeling a little bit lost, wants to upskill or retrain or just develop themselves in some way. What advice would you have for people who want to do this at a time when perhaps their business can't support them to do it? Mandeep, can I come to you first, because you kind of lead a fairly large team at Truva. What kind of advice would you have in this space?
Yeah, well, when you've been asking these questions, it's quite interesting just trying to remember back at the beginning. And one thing for sure is that I probably knew 5 or 10% of the skills I needed to start the business. And that scared me, but it also excited me. And it excited me because ultimately I'm a big believer in that the best way of learning something is just doing it and having a go. And I suppose all three of us quit our jobs to go start something. So hopefully we're all advocates of that. But I think that is really important. So for me, for example, I'd never done sales. I'd never and yet I was starting the business, so I had to, right? I had to pound the streets and learn how to do sales or how to do digital marketing and how to do Facebook ads. I'd never done that before. I can't say I was brilliant at everything, but it's probably awful at everything. But I had to have a go. So I do think that is very important, and I'm not necessarily a massive fan of traditional learning and development that you get in corporates. So having a go ultimately is super important. And there are ways to do that. Obviously, I'm a big fan of people starting their own thing, and I think that's and ultimately a lot of traditional retail is suffering. And I think one of the good things will come out of that is that a lot of people will start their own businesses, whether it's their own brands or whether it's in technology or otherwise. But even within a corporate, I think that's possible to do, because if you spot a problem, like you say, entrepreneurial is all about solving problems. So having a go at that, and practically, whether it's getting stuck in and actually, let's say you want to learn how to do marketing, right? Going to spend time at the marketing team or having a go at it yourself, either in your own business or your current company or outside of that, is the best way to learn. And as long as you're motivated and really want to have a go and passionate about it, the resources are out there. They're free and accessible to everyone now, thanks to online.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice as well, is using the fact that everything is online at the moment, and more things are online than ever before as a result of the last year. So making the most of that. Talia, have you got any kind of insight on this one? What advice would you give to somebody looking to kind of upskill?
Yeah, well, I have, I guess because I've come from an HR background, learning and development specifically, I've always been a huge advocate of continuous development. So the way that I approach it is really in 3 ways. Firstly, I identify networks that I can join. For me, it's been mostly in the form of accelerator programs, which have spanned anywhere from 3 to 6 months and have equipped me with business knowledge from finance to marketing to sales. But I think in terms of people who are working in corporate settings, what has been the huge benefit of that is being able to find my peers and people who are going on a similar journey, who I can share my challenges with, share the highs and lows, and learn off each other. And I think in whatever setting we find ourselves in, whether we're an entrepreneur starting our own business or within a more of a corporate structure, there's always people within our sector who we can share knowledge with and upskill each other. Because there's some things that that the person sitting next to you, or virtually sitting next to you, won't know, and vice versa. And I think that's been one of the most powerful parts of the journey, just learning from other people's challenges, mistakes, and successes, of course. I think the second thing is identifying mentors. I think this is something that's often discussed, but actually putting it into practice. I personally have two mentors, one that I met at an event 8 years ago, and she's a brand specialist. At the time, that wasn't my strong point. I wanted to build a brand, so it made sense to kind of be under the wing of someone who's built a lot of brands for organizations before. And so through that relationship, I've been able to upskill and constantly get feedback from her, which has been invaluable. My other mentor is in finance. Finance is not a strong point of mine. So it was really important for me to admit that to myself firstly, and then identify someone that could help me along that journey. And then thirdly, I will definitely identify with Mandeep in the fact that doing is kind of the biggest way that you can upskill yourself. Like, yes, you can read all the books, you can attend all the YouTube tutorials, but I think the best way to learn is just by doing. When I started my business, I had no idea how to, find a manufacturer. And I just had to throw myself in there. At first, it didn't go well. My first relationship with my factory did not go well. But I learned a lot from that. And luckily, I was able to learn from my own mistakes. And now I have an amazing manufacturer, and the relationship's amazing. The prices are great. And it's in Europe, in a region that I want to be in, that represents my brand and the quality that I want to communicate with the world. So yeah, those are really the ways that I've upskilled, and hopefully they'll resonate with everyone else.
I think that's really good advice, the sort of learning as you go thing. And I remember talking to somebody, another leader in the retail sector, who said it's worth writing down good feedback about yourself. So you'll always remember the good feedback, and you'll always kind of feel good when you read that. But also writing down the things that you're learning along the way, so you don't make those mistakes, and calling it things you're learning, not calling it bad feedback. Let's be clear here. I think that's because you can learn just as much from yourself as well as from other people. Talia, you touched upon networks, and Victoria, I'd like to come to you for my next question around kind of networks and building contacts, if that's all right. I'm sort of interested in kind of how important you all on the panel think networking is to improving chances of career progression. Is it a nice to have, or is it kind of vital? And Victoria, I know that you've got quite a large network online. I found you through Instagram, and actually I in chatting about kind of things that are going on in Be Inspired, somebody else mentioned you on Instagram as a recommendation. So I think that's got to be a success. I think you must be a network expert. So can you tell us a bit about how you've gone about kind of building that, and have you got any advice on doing that successfully?
Oh, that's fantastic news. I'm very happy to hear that. It's interesting. I think I've tried everything when it comes to networking. Pre-COVID, I went to an in real life speed networking for businesses. And there's plenty of those that still exist, and they have been taken online. So that's definitely one way of doing it. I'm also part of a couple of different membership groups, and networking within that. Sometimes it's just led to someone who's, a videographer, but they also know somebody who does graphic design, or they know how to build websites. So that's kind of how I've done a lot of that. I also did a PR course, which is what I would say was invaluable, in that it just gives you a lot of confidence in what you're doing, so that you actually understand that side of it. Because marketing as an adaptive brand, we don't have the same reach, we don't have the same equality. So that's why I'm actually leading the charge with 50 adaptive brands to request the algorithms are sort of looked at by Facebook and Instagram, because we can't reach our audience. So traditional marketing for me doesn't work the same way. So I am very reliant on my network. And that's where social media, in some respects, does play a huge part, because while our following is small, it's very engaged. And I do spend a lot of time nurturing that and speaking to people. I mean, speaking across 8 social media channels is a challenge and something that I'd quite like to give up, to be honest. But I think just knowing if you know your audience and you're speaking to your audience, they're going to go off and tell people, someone's resolving this issue, someone's found a solution, especially when it's impact driven. I think, it's really easy to sort of show that you care and that you are changing people's lives with what you're doing. And that's something that everybody wants to hear about and that they will go and tell their friends about. So networking is super key. I think membership groups are probably the way forward, as well as Twitter. Twitter is a hotbed of marketing, networking and contacts. And again, going to these online events of speed networking, I also recommend.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good advice. I think we're really seeing the power of social media now in terms of creating those networks and creating those network groups, finding out who out there is doing the same thing as you or wanting to progress in the same way that you are, and kind of connecting with them, I think is really good. And certainly with Be Inspired, I mean, shameless plug here, but we are trying to do kind of networking sessions online and hopefully in person at the end of this year to get everybody talking, because I think there's so much you can learn just across the industry from people in different roles and different remits. Okay, we have been given our 5-minute warning, so I'm going to ask a very quick question to conclude, and hopefully you can all answer in one line. I would like to know the best lesson you've learnt yourself in relation to personal development over the course of your career. So if you've got one piece of wisdom that you can glean from your own careers, please share it now. Mandeep, let's come to you first.
Thanks for throwing in the deep end. Since we've been talking about networking, it's probably related to that, which is like, don't be, you'll be surprised how many people are willing to help you if you just ask. And I think that's been an amazing lesson for me. And if earlier in my career I'd realized that and I just reached out to people and asked, I probably would have got to where I'd got to a lot quicker.
I love that, actually, because it's not about the expensive training courses. It's not about going to the conferences that cost you loads of money to attend. It really is about kind of making connections and everybody wanting to help other people. And there's a real spirit of that at the moment as well. I think with everything that's gone on, we all are quite willing to kind of lift other people up. Talia, can I come to you next for the same question?
Yeah, I was actually going to say something very similar, which was it's okay to ask for help. And I guess just adding to that, during the pandemic, we have really learned to lean on each other. And, the UK is quite an individualistic culture, but I think we've been shaken up. And so, whether it's those networks within our sphere or just being more proactive and going to events with an objective to connect with specific people, I think it's a great time to do that and to identify your own gaps and seek those people who can help you plug them.
Brilliant advice as well. Victoria, can I come to you? What's the best lesson you yourself have learned in relation to personal development?
Go for it. You can always revise everything. You can redo everything. Everything is a lesson. But if you don't try, you will never, ever know. So just go for it.
Oh, what a great note to end on. I really, really enjoyed chatting today. I think my key takeaway from today is that you don't have to, you don't need your business to invest in you necessarily in order to develop yourself personally. And it can come from within. And it is all about those connections and who can help you and who's willing to kind of impart their knowledge, both inside your business, outside your business, and within your wider network. I think that's really key. And that's what I will definitely take away from this. And I hope that everybody watching has been empowered to kind of make those changes within their own career where they feel it's relevant. Thank you, Victoria, Mandeep and Talia, for joining us today. Thank you for all of your wisdom. We really do appreciate it. And I will now hand back to Ria. Thank you.